The Amish approach to chicken pot pie differs significantly from the individual serving versions found in modern American kitchens or the frozen varieties lining grocery store shelves. Their version is a grand, communal dish designed to feed large families and visiting neighbors, reflecting the community-centered nature of Amish life. This is not merely a pie with chicken inside, but rather a substantial meal that combines tender, slow-cooked chicken with thick, chewy squares of homemade noodles, all swimming in a rich, golden broth that has been carefully developed over hours of patient simmering. The foundation of any authentic Amish chicken pot pie begins with selecting the right chicken. Amish cooks prefer using older hens, often retired laying birds that have lived full lives scratching in farmyard dirt and producing countless eggs. These birds, while tougher than young fryers, possess a depth of flavor that cannot be replicated with modern commercial chickens. The meat, though requiring longer cooking times, develops an incredibly rich taste that permeates the entire dish. When such birds are not available, a combination of chicken thighs and drumsticks provides the necessary richness and flavor that breast meat alone cannot deliver. The cooking process begins early in the day, often before dawn when the morning chores are complete and the kitchen fire has been properly stoked. A large, heavy-bottomed kettle, preferably made of cast iron that has been seasoned through decades of use, is placed over the heat source. The chicken is placed whole into this vessel, surrounded by aromatic vegetables that form the foundation of flavor. Onions, cut into large chunks rather than finely diced, provide sweetness and depth. Carrots, peeled and cut into substantial pieces, add both color and subtle earthiness. Celery stalks, complete with their leafy tops, contribute a fresh, herbaceous note that balances the richness of the meat. Bay leaves, those aromatic sentinels of the herb world, are added along with peppercorns that will release their warmth slowly into the developing broth. Salt is added judiciously, with the understanding that the flavors will concentrate as the liquid reduces during the long cooking process. Fresh herbs from the kitchen garden, particularly thyme and parsley, are bundled together with kitchen twine and submerged in the pot, ready to release their essence into the simmering liquid. Cold, clear water is poured over the chicken and vegetables until everything is covered by at least 2 inches of liquid. The pot is brought to a gentle boil, and immediately the heat is reduced to maintain the barest simmer. This is crucial to the Amish method. Aggressive boiling will result in cloudy, greasy broth and tough, stringy meat. Instead, the chicken must cook slowly and gently, allowing the connective tissues to break down gradually while the bones release their gelatin into the surrounding liquid. This initial cooking phase requires patience and attention. The chicken typically simmers for 2 to 3 hours, depending on its size and age. During this time, the cook periodically skims away any foam or impurities that rise to the surface, ensuring that the final broth remains clear and pure. The kitchen fills with the incomparable aroma of slowly cooking chicken, a scent that seems to permeate every corner of the house and signals to family members that something special is being prepared. While the chicken undergoes its slow transformation, attention turns to preparing the noodles that will give the pot pie its distinctive character. Amish pot pie noodles are unlike any other pasta, being thick, substantial squares that hold their shape during the final cooking process while absorbing the flavorful broth. The noodle dough begins with simple ingredients: flour, eggs, and water, with perhaps a small amount of salt and a touch of butter or lard for richness. The flour used is typically unbleached all-purpose flour, though some families prefer a combination of all-purpose and bread flour for additional structure. The eggs are fresh from the henhouse, their golden yolks contributing both color and richness to the dough. The ratio of ingredients is often measured by feel rather than precise measurement, as experienced Amish cooks have developed an intuitive understanding of how the dough should look and feel. The eggs are beaten in a large mixing bowl before the flour is gradually incorporated, creating a shaggy mass that will eventually become smooth and elastic. Cold water is added sparingly, just enough to bring the dough together without making it sticky or difficult to handle. The mixing process is done by hand, allowing the cook to feel the development of the dough and make adjustments as needed. Once the ingredients are combined, the dough is turned onto a floured work surface for kneading. This is not the aggressive kneading required for bread, but rather a gentle, thorough process that develops the gluten just enough to create structure without making the noodles tough. The dough is kneaded until it becomes smooth and slightly elastic, usually about 8 to 10 minutes of steady work. The finished dough is shaped into a ball and covered with a damp cloth to rest while the chicken continues its slow cooking. This resting period allows the gluten to relax, making the dough easier to roll out when the time comes. Some Amish cooks prefer to prepare the noodle dough the day before, wrapping it tightly and refrigerating it overnight, which they believe improves both the texture and flavor of the finished noodles. When the chicken is thoroughly cooked and falling from the bones, it is carefully removed from the pot and set aside to cool. The cooking liquid is strained through several layers of cheesecloth or a fine mesh strainer, removing all the vegetables and aromatics that have given their essence to create a clear, golden broth. This liquid gold is returned to the pot and kept at a gentle simmer while the chicken is prepared. Once the chicken is cool enough to handle, every bit of meat is carefully picked from the bones, skin is discarded, and the meat is torn into substantial, bite-sized pieces. This process is done by hand rather than with knives, as tearing the meat along its natural grain results in better texture and appearance in the finished dish. Any small bones or cartilage are scrupulously removed, ensuring that the final dish will be safe and pleasant to eat. The noodle making process begins with rolling the rested dough on a generously floured surface. Using a heavy rolling pin, the dough is rolled until it reaches the proper thickness, approximately 1/8 of an inch, thick enough to provide substance but thin enough to cook through properly. The dough should be rolled evenly with regular turning and additional flour as needed to prevent sticking. Once rolled to the proper thickness, the dough is cut into squares using a sharp knife or pastry wheel. Traditional Amish pot pie noodles are quite large, typically measuring about 2 inches on each side, though some families prefer them slightly larger or smaller according to personal preference. The squares are cut with decisive, clean strokes to prevent the edges from sealing together, which would prevent proper cooking. The cut noodles are arranged on clean kitchen towels and allowed to dry slightly while the final preparations are made. This brief drying period helps prevent the noodles from sticking together when they are added to the pot and ensures that they will hold their shape during cooking. The assembly of the pot pie begins with bringing the strained chicken broth to a vigorous boil in the large kettle. The prepared chicken meat is added back to the pot along with fresh vegetables that will provide color and texture to the finished dish. Carrots are cut into neat dice, potatoes are peeled and cubed, and celery is chopped into small pieces. Some families include peas or corn depending on seasonal availability and family preferences. The vegetables are added to the boiling broth and cooked just until they begin to soften. The timing is crucial here. The vegetables should retain some firmness since they will continue cooking when the noodles are added. Onions, cut into medium dice, are typically added along with the other vegetables, contributing their sweet flavor to the developing dish. When the vegetables have reached the proper stage of doneness, the noodle squares are added to the pot one by one, ensuring that each piece is separate and not stuck to others. The addition of the noodles must be done carefully and methodically, as dumping them all at once can cause them to clump together. Each square is gently pushed beneath the surface of the liquid with a wooden spoon, ensuring that it will cook evenly. The pot pie is then simmered gently with the cook stirring occasionally to prevent the noodles from sticking to the bottom of the pot. The cooking time for the noodles is typically 15 to 20 minutes, during which they will absorb some of the flavorful broth while releasing starches that help to thicken the surrounding liquid. The finished noodles should be tender but still have a slight firmness when bitten, similar to properly cooked pasta. During the final cooking phase, seasonings are adjusted to taste. Salt and pepper are added carefully, keeping in mind that the flavors will continue to develop as the dish rests. Fresh herbs, particularly parsley and sometimes thyme, are chopped and stirred in during the last few minutes of cooking, providing bright, fresh notes that complement the rich, slow-cooked flavors. The consistency of the finished pot pie is important to its authenticity. It should not be soupy like a stew, nor should it be as thick as a traditional pie filling. Instead, it should have enough liquid to be served with a ladle, but the liquid should be somewhat thickened by the starches released from the noodles. If the pot pie seems too thin, it can be simmered uncovered for a few additional minutes to allow some of the liquid to evaporate.